Now, many of you will know if there is one thing that I truly love, it's movies. You cannot beat a good movie, and I absolutely love finding out how movies are made and little bits from behind the scenes. Like Interstellar is my favourite movie of all time, and I don't know how I didn't find this out before, but I literally read this morning that when they're on the water planet, there's a tick in the score, and every tick is a day passing on Earth, which just blew my mind. Another reason why it's just my favourite. But anyways, I believe in the past I've done 1 hour of movie facts, but I think in tonight's video we're gonna, in tonight's video we're gonna give it a more specific angle and focus on just facts about the behind the scenes of movies. So hopefully it should be a fun listen and watch. Hopefully you find it relaxing and informative. As always is the aim here on the channel. This should be a little bit of a longer video, so if you could go ahead and leave a like now, that would be wonderful. But without further ado, let's get into the facts. While filming Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps, Shia LaBeouf invested $20,000 in the stock market and ended up making more than $400,000. The filming of The Godfather was disrupted by actual mafia member Joe Colombo. Producer already met with him and reviewed the script, striking the word mafia completely from the movie. Colombo and his pals also managed to elbow their way into casting and ended up as extras in the film. FBI assigned a team to Sacha Baron Cohen during the filming of Borat, due to reports of a Middle Eastern man travelling in an ice cream truck. I'm not really too surprised, he does do some pretty outrageous things, but it's not even the most dangerous things that Sacha Baron Cohen has done. Sir Ian McKellen became so frustrated filming in front of green screen scenes for The Hobbit that he burst into tears on set. During the filming of Star Trek 2009, Zachary Quinto could not manage to properly do the Vulcan salute. Eventually, J.J. Abrams had to glue his fingers together in order for Quinto to do it correctly. Is it really? It's not really that difficult, is it that? Do a little dance. Next fact, in the movie The Hangover, no effects or prosthetics were created for Stu's missing tooth. Actor Ed Helms never had an adult incisor grow, and his fake incisor was taken out for the parts of filming where Stu's tooth is missing. Woody Harrelson had an altercation with a photographer just after he finished filming Zombieland, and his excuse was that he was still in character and thought the paparazzo was a zombie. Yeah, I'm sure they'll hold up really well in court. Bolaji Badejo, the 7'2" Nigerian design student, cast as the titular creature in Ridley Scott's Alien, disappeared shortly after filming, and fans have not been able to confirm if he is alive or dead. Robin Williams, rest in peace, decided to test out the believability of his Mrs. Doubtfire character by going as Mrs. Doubtfire into an adult bookstore and making a purchase. He was able to do so without being recognised. During the filming of The Grinch, Jim Carrey took counselling from a Navy SEAL to learn torture-resistant techniques to handle the extensive makeup. During the filming of Batman Begins, someone crashed into the Batmobile in a state of panic, thinking it was an invading alien spacecraft. What? Charles Bronson, Britain's most violent prisoner, actually shaved his trademark moustache off, so Tom Hardy could wear it during the filming of Bronson, which was based on his life in prison. While filming The African Queen, 1951, in the Congo, everyone on the crew became very ill with dysentery from drinking the water. Everyone except Humphrey Bogart, who only drank whiskey. After filming the freeway scenes for The Matrix Reloaded, the filmmakers, instead of disposing of the set, chose to donate it in pieces to charity in Mexico to be turned into low-cost housing. While filming Zodiac, Robert Downey Jr. used to discreetly pee into jars and leave them in corners of the set as protest for not getting enough break time. The scar over Sean Bean's left eye was given to him by Harrison Ford, who accidentally struck him with a meat hook whilst filming a scene in Patriot Games. During breaks while filming Planet of the Apes, 1968, the actors playing chimpanzees would usually only consort with other chimp actors and gorillas with other gorilla actors, etc. They were not instructed to do this, it just sort of happened. During the filming of Cabin Fever, Ryder Strong decided to explore the forest alone after a shoot. Still in his gruesome makeup, he came across a group of schoolgirls on a field trip who were horrified, but then recognised him from Boy Meets World, and he had to escape from the fangirls. Sylvester Stallone broke his neck while filming a fight scene for The Expendables, which required the insertion of a metal plate. Thora Birch was 16 at the time of filming a topless scene in American Beauty. Being classified as a minor, her parents had to approve her brief topless scene in the movie. They and child labour representatives were on the set for the shooting of the scene. While filming The Machinist, Christian Bale only ate an apple and a can of tuna a day. His goal was to weigh 100 pounds before producers stopped him. Yeah, I think it's probably got to be one of the most extreme cases of reverse body training, is it? It's still body training, so, but losing weight for a role. If you compare his physique in the Batman trilogy to how he looks like in the Machinist, the Machinist, I'm sure it's the Machinist. It's crazy. Go and have a look, because it is just absolutely wild. While filming a fight scene for Sherlock Holmes, Robert Melee, Dredger, accidentally knocked out Robert Downey Jr. Stanley Kubrick used lenses commissioned by NASA for the Apollo moon landings while filming his Victorian masterpiece, Barry Lyndon, allowing him to capture scenes lit only by candlelight. Stanley Kubrick duped George C. Scott into playing General Turgidson in Doctor Strangelove, absurdly by telling him they were filming practice takes. Scott swore never to work with Kubrick again after that. In the middle of filming the village attack in Apocalypse Now, the helicopters provided by the Philippine Air Force suddenly veered away and disappeared. They'd been called off the filming to attack a real-life rebel force in the hills. Skywalker's relationship a secret. While filming The Empire Strikes Back, cast and crew were given a fake script in which Vader tells Luke, "Obi-Wan killed your father." While filming The Princess Bride, Andre the Giant used to cover Robin Wright's head with his huge hand to keep her warm when it got particularly cold. During the filming of The Exorcist, many actors were injured, the set burned down, a priest was brought in many times to bless the set, and the actor who played Burke, Jack McCarran, died from influenza. During filming of Schindler's List, a survivor of the concentration camp in Plaszow, Poland, met actor Ray Fiennes, who played Nazi Captain Amon Goeth. She began to shake uncontrollably at the sight of him because he was so convincing. Goeth was responsible for tens of thousands of deaths. Harrison Ford was only at Star Wars auditions to read lines with other actors, not to actually audition for any parts. He was eventually cast as Han Solo, however, because all of his line readings were better than the actors who were actually auditioning for the role. Though it was written in the script for X-Men Days of Future Past that Wolverine was to wake up in 1973 in his underwear, Hugh Jackman had this changed by claiming that if he were to wake up next to a really good-looking girl, he wouldn't be wearing anything. Director Christopher Nolan initially had no idea how the Joker's pencil trick could be performed practically while shooting The Dark Knight. Though CGI was considered, in the end the stuntman just pulled the pencil away before his head hit the desk. Scenes featuring Beeves the Poltergeist, played by the late Rick Mayall, were filmed for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, but were deleted from the final cut. After that, the character was never written into another Harry Potter script again. Director David Ayer initially wanted to add King Shark to lineup of the Suicide Squad movie, but replaced the character with Killer Croc when he realised it would take a lot of CG to bring his original choice to film. Now, in the second one, in comes Killer Shark, and what a great addition, although, I do find in the movie, he's great for comic relief, and you do feel sorry for him, but they did go a bit overboard with making him so unbelievably stupid. But I love that movie. Anyway, the second one. The first one is a hot steaming mess. The double-bladed lightsaber. Darth Maul debuted in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, isn't actually one complete unit, but two lightsabers welded together at the pommel. This explains why one blade still worked after it was sliced in half by Obi-Wan Kenobi. Robert Rodriguez was paid $1 to score Kill Bill Volume 2 for his friend Quentin Tarantino. In turn, Tarantino was paid $1 to direct a scene in Rodriguez's film, Sin City. At the end of the Deadpool movie, the title character fights Ajax on top of a partially disassembled helicarrier, visually similar to the ones used by S.H.I.E.L.D. in the MCU. This is a direct nod to the MCU, though Fox Studios requested that flying aircraft look different enough to prevent a lawsuit from Disney. Yeah, I think it got confirmed that it's definitely not a S.H.I.E.L.D. ship. By the way, I'm not going to divulge for too long, but as I'm filming this video, the Deadpool trailer came out last weekend. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for that movie. I love that they withheld Wolverine like we haven't all seen the leaks and stuff, but and the begging joke was just, yeah, I honestly can't get enough of Deadpool. If anyone is going to reboot the MCU back to its somewhat former glory, it's 100% going to be Deadpool. Anyways, moving on to the next fact. Since George Lucas was originally planning on making 11 more Star Wars movies after the success of the first film, Boba Fett was created with the intention of becoming the central villain of Star Wars Return of the Jedi. However, shortly after production on the second film began, Lucas decided to end the series with that film, and Fett's role was heavily reduced. Clark Gregg's Agent Coulson was not intended to reappear in the MCU past the first Iron Man film. It wasn't until a contract dispute with Samuel L. Jackson caused Nick Fury's role in Thor to be dropped, and Clark Gregg was asked to reappear in a larger role. Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca in the original Star Wars trilogy, had been wheelchair-bound since 2011 due to his old age and height. However, when he found out Chewbacca would reappear in Star Wars The Force Awakens, the actor underwent double knee surgery in 2013 in order to reprise the role. Mark Webb, the director of The Amazing Spider-Man film series, hinted that a third film would have introduced Venom as the villain and featured a formula that could regenerate dead characters, like Captain Stacy and possibly even Gwen. Yeah, that plot sounds terrible. And look, and that's me saying that because despite me really wanting a finale to the trilogy, genuinely, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, those two movies are nowhere near as bad as people say. I think Andrew is just a fantastic Spider-Man. Yes, he's probably a bit too, cool and whatever, but who cares, man? I love those movies, and I want to defend them. I will defend them with my life. Moving on, shortly after he was cast in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice as Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck ran into Christian Bale by accident in a costume shop, where they were each buying a Batman costume for their kids. When Affleck asked for any advice he could give about playing Batman, Bale told him to make sure you can piss in the suit. Joe and Anthony Russo, the directors of Captain America Civil War, said that they crafted the cinematic language of the film as if it were a love story between Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes. Gene Roddenberry's original story treatment for Star Trek the Motion Picture involved Captain Kirk and the Enterprise crew tracking down and battling a shape-shifting alien that took on the appearance of Jesus Christ. Goodness me. In the movie Kingpin, Bill Murray improvised nearly all of his lines and bowled the necessary 3 strikes to win the tournament at the end. Due to alleged contract disputes and the claim of a mild back injury, Tobey Maguire was nearly fired from Spider-Man 2 and replaced by Jake Gyllenhaal. I tell you what, a younger Jake Gyllenhaal would have been a great Peter Parker. I could definitely see that. When asked after its release what you would rate the Green Lantern film on a scale of 1 to 10, Star Ryan Reynolds gave it a 1. Man, I remember that movie coming out when I was a kid, and I low-key thought it was sick. It's only when you go back, revisiting it as a bit older as an adult, with a bit more comic book knowledge, that you realise just how bad it is. Since the movie Beasts of No Nation was released online the same time it was theatrically, AMC, Regal, Carmike and Cinemark completely boycotted the movie, effectively downgrading the movie to a limited release movie with a box office return of $90,000. Frodo had the ring for 17 years before going on his quest, instead of the handful of days in the movie. Actor Vincent D'Onofrio holds the record for most weight gained for a movie role. He gained 70 pounds to play the role of Private Leonard Lawrence in Full Metal Jacket. Ashton Kutcher tried Steve Jobs' fruitarian diet when getting into character for the Jobs movie, and ended up in hospital because it messed up his pancreatic enzyme levels. Straight Outta Compton was never played in Compton because the city has no movie theatres. M. Night Shyamalan chose not to work on the Life of Pi movie because he didn't want audiences to suspect a twist. Billy Crystal's character Miracle Max in The Princess Bride was so funny that it nearly stopped the production of the movie. One actor bruised a rib from clenching to try not to laugh. In the casino scene in Black Panther, the colours of the outfits worn by T'Challa, Okoye and Nakia collectively form the colours found on the Pan-African flag: red, black and green. Mace Windu's lightsaber is purple, so Samuel L. Jackson could find himself in the Episode 2 arena battle. Jackson said, "Well, I want to be able to find myself on this big old screen," so he asked for a purple lightsaber. George Lucas told him lightsabers don't come in purple, but Jackson said, "Yeah, but I want a purple one. I'm like the second baddest Jedi in the universe next to Yoda." And he got what he asked for. The role that made Viggo Mortensen's career, Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, almost went to Nicolas Cage. The house party from Superbad was filmed half a block from the O.J. Simpson murder house. Stanley Kubrick was a fan of White Men Can't Jump and hated The Wizard of Oz. The District 9 voices were made from the sound of pumpkins being rubbed together, combined with clicking and the actors' voices. David Letterman auditioned and screen tested for the role of Ted Stryker in Airplane. Top Gun boosted recruitment numbers for the Navy. After the movie was released, there was a 500% growth rate for the naval aviator position. I've changed website for the facts now. It sort of builds on the Mrs. Doubtfire one from earlier. During filming of Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams once browsed a local sex shop while in full costume as Mrs. Doubtfire. I've no idea what that noise is outside. Sean Connery and Harrison Ford aren't wearing any pants during a scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade because it was so hot on the day of filming. Hugh Jackman says he owes his career to Russell Crowe. Crowe passed on the role of Wolverine and then recommended his friend Hugh for the job, which eventually made him, of course, a household name. On the set of Raw, a film about a family living with lions, 14-year-old Melanie Griffith was mauled so badly that she required facial reconstruction and almost lost an eye. When auditioning for Elizabeth I, Eddie Redmayne led the director to believe he was an experienced horseback rider. He got the part and the truth came out. Redmayne nearly killed himself trying to shoot his scene on the horse. Chad Stahelski, who directed Keanu Reeves in John Wick, had been his stunt double in The Matrix. West Side Story, a musical version of Romeo and Juliet, was originally going to be about a Catholic boy and a Jewish girl. The Marx Brothers' 1933 movie Duck Soup was set in the fictional kingdom of Fredonia. When the movie was released, the mayor of Fredonia, New York, had this to say: "I feel it is my duty as mayor to question your intentions in using the name of our city in your picture." To which the Marx Brothers replied, "Your Excellency, our advice is that you change the name of your town. It is hurting our picture." Jackie Chan is famous for his on-set injuries while doing his own stunts. One such injury on the set of Armour of God 2 required him to get brain surgery and left him with a metal plate inside his head. The relationship between Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi in Tim Burton's Ed Wood was a reflection of Burton's own relationship with Vincent Price. Censor Joe Breen almost had the most famous line in Gone with the Wind replaced with such alternatives as, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a whoop." Thankfully, director David Selznick successfully contended that the dramatic use of the word damn was at worst a common vulgarism, not a curse or oath that required censoring. While looking for a tattered coat for the character playing the wizard in The Wizard of Oz, a costume assistant bought one from a second-hand store. When the actor put the coat on, he turned the pocket inside out. Written in the pocket was the name L. Frank Baum, who is the author of the Wizard of Oz books. Baum's widow later identified the coat as actually having belonged to her husband. That is mental. Like, the sheer odds of that happening are surely absolutely massive. That is ridiculous. While filming Total Recall, Arnold Schwarzenegger noticed that Michael Ironside was constantly on the phone between takes. When he broached the subject with Ironside, he was told he was phoning his sister and that she was currently suffering from cancer. Arnold immediately brought Michael to his trailer and they had an hour-long three-way conversation with the sister about what exercises to do and what kinds of food she should be eating, and really lifting her spirits. Ironside has never forgotten Schwarzenegger's kindness, and neither has his sister. Yeah, Arnold strikes me as the kind of guy that is genuinely one of the good guys in Hollywood. While filming Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Bella, the Neapolitan Mastiff that played Fang, got very protective of Daniel Radcliffe and would jump in front of him whenever the animatronic spider for Aragog would come out to defend him, resulting in them having to refilm the scene multiple times. While filming Guardians of the Galaxy, they had to do several takes of some scenes because Chris Pratt kept making the pew-pew sounds when he fired his ray gun. I believe they did the same on Star Wars with the lightsabers. During the filming of The Lord of the Rings, Christopher Lee corrected Peter Jackson on the sound of being stabbed in the back. From the DVD commentary, when I was shooting the stabbing shot with Christopher, as a director, I was explaining to him what he should do. And he says, "Peter, have you ever heard the sound a man makes when he's stabbed in the back?" And I said, no. says, "Well, I have, and I know what to do." He'd been involved in some super secret operations for the British during World War II, which is presumably where he knew that from. Next fact. In Apollo 13, they filmed in NASA's Vomit Comet, a plane that flew at high altitudes and would create parabola movements to simulate a short period of low gravity. They built the Apollo spacecraft set inside the plane, and almost every scene featuring zero gravity was filmed in the plane. They flew over 500 times in the parabola. From the time that low gravity simulation would start, they would only have 23 seconds to unstrap from restraints, set up a shot, roll, and then strap back in. They completed all of these flights in 13 days. In Life of Brian, the line after "Yes, we're all individuals, I'm not" was ad-libbed, bumping the extra up in pay for now having a distinct speaking role. In The Shawshank Redemption, there's a scene where a guy feeds a maggot to a crow. The American Humane Association made them find a maggot that had died of natural causes to feed to the crow. They wouldn't have given the "no animals were harmed" in the making of this film at the end if they hadn't. Is a maggot like... Is anyone really going to get upset over a maggot? Monty Python's Life of Brian stirred so much controversy that production company EMC pulled the funding just days before filming was set to begin. George Harrison heard about this and paid for the entire production of the film with his own money. During the filming of The Princess Bride, Mandy Patinkin's father died from cancer. When he came back from the funeral, they had to shoot the scene where he kills the six-fingered man. It gives him a special fire in his eyes when he says, "I want my father back, you son of a bitch." In Avengers, Robert Downey Jr. would hide food around the sets and eat them while filming. The crew would attempt to find his stashes, but never did. All those times he was eating on screen were unscripted. In Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, when Aragorn, Gimli and Legolas are approaching the pile of smouldering and dismembered corpses looking for Pippin and Merry, Viggo Mortensen kicks a helmeted orchid and screams, thinking the hobbits are dead and gone. It's a really good scream and 100% authentic. When Mortensen kicked the head/helmet, he broke 2 of his toes. He used the pain and stayed in character, and they kept the scene for the movie. From the movie Predator, Jesse Ventura was delighted to find out from the wardrobe department that his arms were 1 inch bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger's. He suggested to Arnold that they measure arms, with the winner getting a bottle of champagne. Ventura lost because Schwarzenegger had told the wardrobe department to tell Ventura that his arms were bigger. In Requiem for a Dream, there is a scene where Ellen Bernstein gives a monologue about how terrible it is to grow old and useless. Unlike the rest of the movie, where every shot is very carefully planned and framed, the camera goes all shaky and off-center. This was not planned or intended, and director Darren Aronofsky started to throw a fit as soon as the scene was cut, because Ellen Bernstein had just delivered an amazing performance, and the cinematographer had screwed it all up. As it turns out, the filming was screwed up because the cinematographer was so moved by Bernstein's performance that he was crying uncontrollably. He couldn't hold the camera still and couldn't see because his crying fogged up the eyepiece. But they did use the cut in the final film. The actors in Saving Private was filmed in chronological order, and throughout the filming Edward Norton put himself on a near starvation diet and avoided the sun, while Brad Pitt spent a lot of time at the gym and in tanning salons. The end result is we see Tyler Durden getting stronger and healthier while the narrator withers away. Raiders of the Lost Ark, when Indy shoots the sword fighter, you were supposed to fight him in a shot that would have taken 3 days. However, Ford was really sick from dysentery, and so convinced Spielberg to do it this way. In the movie The Holiday, there is a scene in a video rental store where Miles, played by Jack Black, is introducing Iris, played by Kate Winslet, to a variety of famous music from movies, Chariots of Fire, Gone with the Wind, etc. When he gets to The Graduate, he starts singing Mrs. Robinson, and the camera cuts over to Dustin Hoffman, shaking his head at their conversation. Dustin Hoffman's cameo was completely unplanned. He knew the director, saw a bunch of equipment at the Blockbuster, stopped in to say hi, and they wrote his cameo in on the spot. In The Dark Knight, whenever the Joker is leaving the hospital as it explodes, and then pauses to fiddle with the detonator when the explosions stop, wasn't supposed to happen. Heath Ledger was genuinely struggling and fiddling with the detonator. It was ad-libbed, but Nolan decided to keep rolling and included it in the film. In Goodfellas, the spaghetti they're eating was cooked by Scorsese's mother. In Alien Resurrection, Sigourney Weaver really did make that no-look, over-the-shoulder basketball shot. Ron Perlman almost blew the take because he was so surprised. In Die Hard, when filming the shot of Alan Rickman falling from the window, they gave him a countdown and then dropped him as they said 1. The shock on his face as he's realised is all real. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, the snakes, being cold-blooded, went towards the thrown torch, causing the director to complain at the snakes, "You're ruining my movie." In the flower shop scene in The Room, when Johnny says, "Oh hi doggy," that was a genuine reaction. He didn't realise that the dog was, in his own words, a real thing. In Anchorman, during the Sex Panther scene, Paul Rudd was determined to make Will Ferrell laugh and break character, since it was always the other way round. He thought that this would be accomplished with the 60% of the time it works every time line. Will fired back with "That doesn't even make sense," a line without skipping a beat once again, making Paul and the others break character again. Will Ferrell honestly is one of the greatest comedy actors of all time, 100%. So, next fact, I knew this one. Apparently the scientists for Interstellar did so much theoretical physics to get the wormhole and black hole effects right that their work is going to be published in a scientific paper. Yeah, so basically the scientists and the team hired to most accurately portray what a black hole would look like in reality. After the movie was made, they actually worked with NASA, and as a result, NASA's understanding of black holes and wormholes, etc., was actually furthered. The famous scene of Vito Corleone holding a cat was not scripted. He just found a cat. Doesn't say what movie that's from. The movie Field of Dreams was based on the book Shoeless Joe by W.B. Kinsella. Throughout the entirety of the production, they had planned to call it Shoeless Joe. After was edited, the producers showed it to a focus group who loved everything about it except the name. They thought it sounded like a movie about a homeless guy. So the producers changed it to Field of Dreams and told the director, Phil Robinson. Robinson was horrified and considered it the worst type of corporate business meddling. He vowed to fight them on this, and his first step was to get WB Kinsella to argue on his side. He made a phone call and mentioned the name change. Before he could give more details, Kinsella interrupted and said, "Oh, Shoeless Joe was my publisher's title. I wanted to call it Dreamfield." In Hitchcock's Rope, which is composed of just a very few long takes, the dolly cam, which is extremely heavy and on rails, ran over a crew member's foot, breaking it. This was pretty deep into a good take, so another stagehand just covered his mouth and dragged him off set, rather than let his screams of pain ruin a lot of work. During the dream sequence in The Big Lebowski, Jeff Bridges is bowled along the floor and comes to rest with his head between a standing cheerleader's legs, staring up at her personal area. He breaks out in a huge grin, which is genuine and totally unscripted. This is because the girl in question was supplied with an elaborate pubic hair wig by the Coen brothers, without Bridges being informed. Also, I don't know what noise my neighbour just made. Apologies. 3 people were struck by lightning during the filming of The Passion of the Christ. William Friedkin had a shotgun with blank shells that he'd shoot off on the sound stage during breaks while filming The Exorcist. It scared the daylights out of everybody, and after a few times he was asked to stop. The actors didn't find it funny. What they didn't know was that their reactions were being filmed and later inserted into the movie as the reaction for when Reagan made a sound upstairs. Apparently Ronald Reagan was amused by Doc Brown's disbelief that an actor like him could become president, so much so that he had the projectionist stop and replay the scene. He also seemed to enjoy it so much that he even made a direct reference of the film in his 1986 State of the Union address. As they said in the film Back to the Future, "Where we're going, we don't need roads." In Soylent Green, when Sol Roth reads the Soylent Corporation Oceanographic Report from 2015 to 2019, he realises that the oceans are dead and that Soylent Green had to be made from corpses. So he goes to a euthanasia parlour. When Thorne catches up to him and is talking to him about things, Thorne has tears in his eyes. This is because he was the only one on the set that knew that Robinson, in fact, was dying of cancer and died 12 days after filming ended. In Now You See Me, Ida Fisher almost drowned in front of the entire cast and crew while filming a scene with an underwater magic trick. In the scene, Fisher's character was chained and submerged in a tank of water. Her cuffs had quick-release magnetic chains, which should have given her an easy escape. However, the chain that went between my legs couldn't be broken and it got stuck, Fisher said. The crew didn't catch on right away because everyone thought I was doing fabulous acting. Flynn Rider's appearance for Tangled was designed during a hot guy meeting, where women from the studio picked out their favourite physical attributes from pictures of Hollywood's leading men. Directors Nathan Greeno and Brian Howard described the whole process, saying, when we were designing the character, we were trying to get the look down, so one of the things we did was bring a lot of the females in from the building. We wanted this guy to be really, really handsome, so we put up photos all over the walls of the most handsome men in all of Hollywood history, and sort of picked out which features sort of worked best. We just listened and let the women have at it. In the end, we put all this stuff together, so he's this very handsome fellow. Julie Andrews was actually flung into the mud every single time the helicopter passed her while filming that iconic hilltop scene in The Sound of Music. A camera operator was strapped to a helicopter in order to get the shot. It had been raining all day, and they shot the scene half a dozen times. Julie Andrews revealed that every time the helicopter had finished, it went around me, but the downdraft from the jet engines just flung me into the grass. In Joker, Joaquin Phoenix lost 52 pounds to play the role of Arthur Fleck. Joaquin consulted with the same doctor who helped him lose weight for his performance in The Master. He lost a total of 52 pounds to play the Joker, and when filming ended, he quickly gained 25 pounds back. In The Incredibles 2, Frozen's wife Honey was set to finally make an appearance, but they unfortunately cut her scene for 2 key reasons. According to writer-director Brad Bird, the scene with Honey, which would have occurred in the opening fight sequence, was cut because 1. We felt like we stayed away from the big action scene too long, and that we were killing the momentum, and 2. We decided the off-camera-ness of it is part of the joke, and then Honey can kinda be anyone you can imagine her to be. Gene Wilder read the script for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and only agreed to play the part if his character could limp out of the factory and then do a somersault. Wilder loved the script but felt like something was missing, and he thought he had the perfect solution. If I play that part, I want to come out with a cane, and there's something wrong with my leg, and I come down the stairs slowly and then have the cane stick into one of the bricks that are down there, and then get up, start to fall over, and then roll around, and they all laugh and applaud. His reasoning for this was simple. I knew that from that time on, no one would know if I was lying or telling the truth. In It Chapter 2, a record 5,000 gallons of fake blood, the most for any movie ever, were used to shoot that iconic bathroom scene. To get the shot just right, Jessica Chastain basically had to bathe in a giddy ball of fake blood, which she said was freezing. Chris Farley was originally cast as Shrek, and he even recorded most of his lines before his death. Chris recorded about 85% of his lines before dying in December 1997. There was talk about having someone impersonate him for the remaining 15%, but they ultimately brought in Mike Myers to do his own version. We spent a year banging our heads against the wall until Mike Myers came on board. Chris is Shrek and Mike Shrek are really 2 completely different characters, as much as Chris and Mike are 2 completely different people. Myers asked that the script be completely rewritten so that he wouldn't be starring in the Chris Farley version of the film. In La La Land, writer-director Damien Chazelle actually incorporated Ryan Gosling's worst audition experience into the movie. Gosling revealed that he once auditioned in front of a group of people who were so uninterested in his emotional scene, tears were literally coming down his face during the performance, that one of them answered a phone call in the middle of it and walked out. Chazelle put that into the script, to which Gosling responded, "It's wonderfully realised by see up there. Sylvester Stallone wanted to make sure the boxing scenes looked so real in Rocky 6 I think that is, that he instructed Dolph Lundgren to actually hit him. A punch to the chest left Stallone in the ICU for 9 days. In Spider-Man Far From Home, Samuel L. Jackson improvised the iconic "Bitch please, you've been to space" rebuttal after Peter claimed he was just a neighborhood Spider-Man. Gene Kelly insulted Debbie Reynolds dancing so much while filming Singing in the Rain that she once hid from everyone under a piano, crying. Reynolds had a few months to learn what Kelly had been doing his whole life, yet he came to rehearsals and criticised everything I did and never gave me a word of encouragement. She also worked so hard that her feet literally started bleeding. One day she had had enough and hid under a piano on the studio lot crying, and Fred Astaire found her. He started working with her on the dance routines. I watched in awe as Fred worked on his routines to the point of frustration and anger. I realised that it was hard for Fred Astaire. Dancing was hard for everyone. In Call Me By Your Name, Timothée Chalamet wore an earpiece while shooting the fireplace scene, so he could listen and react to the song that was played in the actual movie. In the DVD commentary, Chalamet revealed that he had an earpiece in his right ear that was ultimately CGI'd out. He said it was a little bit like an acting exercise, to be playing what the music is making you feel, which helped him mirror the structure of the scene. The song he listened to was Visions of Gideon by Sufjan Stevens. Jackie Cooper couldn't make himself cry while filming a particular scene in Skippy, so the director threatened to have Cooper's dog killed if he couldn't produce tears. The film's director, Norman Dorog, was also Cooper's uncle. Cooper wrote in his autobiography that the whole exchange was traumatizing for him. I could visualize my dog bloody from that one awful shot. I began sobbing so hysterically that it was almost too much for the scene. Dorog had to quiet me down by saying perhaps my dog had survived the shot, that if I hurried and calmed him down a little and did the scene the way he wanted, he would go see if my dog was still alive. Cooper earned an Oscar nom for Best Actor in a leading role for his performance in 1931. He was 9 years old. To this day, he's still the youngest nominee for Best Actor in the history of the Academy Awards. Yeah, it's fine, you just had to put him through a little bit of trauma. Who hasn't had a bit of trauma? In Candyman, Tony Todd had to fill his mouth with real bees during that trademark scene, and he got stung several times because of it. Todd also wore a mouth guard to keep the bees from crawling down the back of his throat. That's horrific. In Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, Cher was basically forced to be in the sequel by the head of Universal Studios. She recalled the event saying, "I've never planned a single thing in my entire life. It's like this ABBA album. I did the film. I didn't ask to do it. My friend Ronnie Mayer, the then president of Universal Studios, called and said, 'You're doing Mamma Mia,' and hung up." Cleopatra was one of the most expensive movies to ever be made. It had an original budget of $5 million, but after 2 years the film still wasn't finished, and more money kept being put into it, totaling over $370 million by today's standards. For A Star Is Born, Bradley Cooper Jr. spent 6 months with a dialect coach trying to imitate Sam Elliott's voice, before he even knew Elliott was going to be cast as his on-screen brother. Buster Keaton fractured his neck while performing a stunt in Sherlock Jr., but he didn't realise it until years later. Writer-director Jordan Peele revealed that the single leather glove each tethered person wore in Us was a nod to 3 key figures: O.J. Simpson, Freddy Krueger, and Michael Jackson. In Thor Ragnarok, the "he's a friend from work" was actually improvised by a kid from Make-A-Wish who was visiting the set that day. Lon Chaney, who played the title characters in The Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Phantom of the Opera, did his own makeup for the roles. Chaney enacted in more than 150 films and was also recognised as one of the best makeup artists in the business. He even wrote the entry for makeup in the 1929 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica. The Princess Diaries was actually produced by Whitney Houston, and the movie's sequel was even co-written by Shonda Rhimes. In Home Alone, that picture of Buzz's girlfriend was actually a picture of the art director's son wearing a wig. Devin Rattray, the actor who played Buzz, admitted that the girl in the picture was actually the son of the movie's art director. They decided it would be unkind to put a girl in that role of just being funny looking. The art director had a son who was more than willing to volunteer for the part. I think if he had known it would become the highest grossing family comedy of all time, he might have had second thoughts about it. For Moonlight, Naomi Harris had only 3 days to shoot all of her scenes because of visa issues. Still, her performance was so good that she was nominated for an Academy Award. In an interview, Harris revealed that she couldn't get a visa to come and film in America. It was ultimately resolved at the last minute, and she claimed this actually helped her performance. I didn't have any time to kind of get in my head. I was just doing it. I wasn't like waiting around in my trailer thinking, oh my god, I've got an emotional scene to do today. I just had to get on and do it and work. In A Quiet Place, Millicent Simmons made on-screen father John Krasinski cry with a simple suggestion to the script, signing "I have always loved you" instead of "I love you" before his character gets killed. In Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Chris Pratt had a full circle moment because the movie was filmed in Maui, Hawaii. Just 20 years earlier, he was living in Maui in a van. Chris Pratt talked about the whole thing during an interview and said that he and another person lived together in a van for almost a year. And going back to the film, it was so surreal and one of those weird full circle things that happens in life. Henry Golding almost turned down the main role in Crazy Rich Asians because he thought it called for a legitimate actor, and that just wasn't him. Golding was a host on travel shows for 7 years. Crazy Rich Asians was going to be his first movie ever, so when they offered him the chance to audition, he thought, oh my god, I've heard of this, but it's for someone else who's a legitimate actor that the studio is going to gamble on. In The Muppet Christmas Carol, Michael Caine insisted that the only way he'd play Scrooge was if he pretended like the Muppets were real people and that he was acting in the Royal Shakespeare Company. Jason Statham almost drowned at the bottom taxi after a stunt went wrong while filming The Expendables 3. He was driving a giant truck for a stunt, and the brakes didn't work. He went over the edge of a cliff inside the truck and water started pouring through the open windows, but luckily he made it out alive. In Hostel, writer-director Eli Roth came up with the premise for the film after discovering a die website where people can pay to torture and kill another human. Tiffany Haddish turned down Jordan Peele's offer to audition for Get Out because she refuses to be in scary movies. Tiffany had worked with the writer-director before, so he sent her the script and asked her to audition for the movie. Her response was pretty simple. "I don't do scary movies, dog. I don't do that. You know, that's demonized kind of stuff. I don't let that in my house. I don't want to get no curses. People already curse me out enough as it is." In Avengers Endgame, Tony Stark's entire death scene was completely made up on the spot. Tom Holland revealed in an interview that only a few people were on the set to film Stark's death scene. Kevin Feige, the Russo brothers, Don Cheadle, Gwyneth Paltrow, Robert Downey Jr. and himself. They showed up to the set and were given a loose outline of what was going to be shot. They kinda told us what was going to happen or what they wanted to happen, and then we just sort of improvised. Holland said it was a really, really interesting way to shoot such a pivotal scene in the movie. And the final fact is, in Die Hard, Bruce Willis's role was actually offered to 73-year-old Frank Sinatra first. Sinatra was contractually obligated to get first dibs because he starred in the film's prequel in 1968. And that, my friends, is that for this evening's video. As I said, a nice long one full of plenty of facts about the behind the scenes of movies that hopefully you didn't know and hopefully you found interesting, and maybe by this point you're even asleep or in a good state of relaxation. If you are seeing this and you have made it to the end of the video, do me a favour and just give a like on the video. It's free, it's easy, just do it now. But yeah, hopefully you did enjoy. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing